Imagine I should still figure this out, but thank you for the reminder. So I'd like to call this meeting to order on the 8th of, sorry, the July 26th, 2021 at 8:01. Sorry, my apologies. There's an alarm in the background. But continuing onwards, we'd like to acknowledge that our offices of the Students' Union at Wilfrid Laurier University is on the traditional territory of the neutral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee people. As for regrets, I've received none, although Director May did tell me that she will be coming a bit late. Moving on, can I get a motion to adopt the agenda as presented? Motioned by Director Bothwell, seconded by Director Del Giudice. Would you like to speak to your motion? Any discussion on the matter? All those in favor, Director Bothwell,
I approve.
Director Shanto,
I approve.
Director Del Giudice,
I approve.
Director McCarthy,
I approve.
Director Symington,
I approve.
Director Vale,
I approve.
and Vice Chair Sneedy.
I approve.
Motion passes unanimous consent. Next, are there any conflict of interest to declare? As I see none. Next, we can go to the comments from the Chair of the Board and CGO. I have no comments regarding this meeting. Next, we can go to the comments to the President and CEO. So I'll pass off to President Yamloff.
Sorry, I'm just trying to, I see the agenda and I'm just curious, is this just a place for me to just here,
This
or
is just for anything else before we get to the agenda item.
like additional information that's potentially outside of that, or
Just like any other information pertaining to operations that's outside the discussion? No? Okay, perfect. Thank you. Next, moving on to comments from the Executive Director, COO. Pass it off to Champagne.
No comments at this time.
Okay, thank you. Now we can move on to the main discussion matter, which is the purpose of the emergency meeting today, which is the over 10K expenditure discussion. And this is relating to the Students' Union Video Story Project. So at this point, I did send everyone, all directors on Friday an email as regarding a brief. And I think at this point, it'll be most prudent for me to let the president take the way from here.
Thank you, Andrew. So in that letter that I sent to Andrew to share with the rest of the board, I highlight that this is something that was, I think, very imperative to the Students' Union and our marketing goals. Per my platform, I mentioned that I really think that the Students' Union needs some more attention to determine what it is that we do, exactly what each one of our roles are separate from one another, and how students can get involved. And I think that that's the most useful to kind of highlight that in a video coming into O Week, because O Week is when we do have our largest viewership. We have thousands of students paying attention to us. So that would be the best usage of this video. However, this video is not just for a single use. It could be used throughout the rest of my term. And even if there's a future president, I'm going to ensure that most of the information stays as true to the coming years as possible. This video, as mentioned, I think will highlight opportunities for students to get involved. And beyond that, new information that me and Megan, who is here, our director of marketing, we've met with 3 different companies. The one that I've sent the quote from was the one that was our first choice, but we did recognize that it was quite pricey, and we wanted to obviously understand the industry standard of this cost. So we met with a few others. But we've now discovered that this is actually an industry standard, and so that the company that we want to utilize for this video has a lot of footage of the university, has been recommended to us by the university. The university often uses their videography for their promotional and marketing resources. So I believe that it's a really great use of funding, And I think that this video could make a significant impact in ensuring that students are aware coming onto campus what it is exactly that we do, alongside how they can also get involved from their very first year. I'm open to any questions, and I can also share more information as time goes on.
Okay, the floor is open to questions. First, I'll pass it to Director Vale.
Yeah, just more of a, I guess, most of my questions are going to probably, I think, have to be asked in camera, I think, in discussion with Andrew, just because of the chair, in light of the comments regarding the fact that some of the information in the quotation is sort of sensitive or confidential.
So just if I could briefly just mention to the quote, a lot of the things within the quote were shared with us also in other quotes as well. When we got, like, for example, Megan and I received another quote from another company, and those are pretty standard costs from, I guess, every company, though they diverge within each company and how they choose to charge us. That's why I'm going to ask for a bit above the 10K mark, because we need that flexibility to potentially work within that. But that's kind of what's been addressed. That's kind of what Megan and I have kind of landed on. But we can talk a bit more about that, just keeping in mind that that quote is probably best to be kept private for the individual's business.
I can add some thoughts here to how we could proceed. I'm going to continue the floor open for questions that don't pertain exactly to the quote itself. So if anyone has questions about the nature of the video, anything of that, we can continue that until we exhaust those questions. And once we talk about the price and those things, then we can go into camera, so we can, keep the meeting as public as possible and have that transparency. If that's okay with everyone. Okay, perfect. Director Bothwell, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, so I guess my question more or less is, like, PJ, you mentioned that it's going to be about getting involved. Is it just going to be about getting involved with, like, clubs on campus, or is it going to also highlight, like, the Senate and the board and, like, all aspects of the student union? Because I know, like, we have our by-election coming up in September, and a big thing of its importance is, like, we had 10 people run for Waterloo for the board, and we were all acclaimed, and we need more recognition.
So just to respond to that, so the video is charged fairly by minute, and we also want to make sure that students are we're cognizant that students' attention could be lost within it, because we're showing it during O week, and we want to hold it on our website, and we want to have it to be like the first, like, kind of like the promotional video of the Students' Union. So we can't go into the nitty-gritty details, unfortunately, of exactly what each person's role is and so on. We just want to highlight the really high level things, such as WILFs, such as the board of directors and their role versus potentially like student services and stuff like that. And obviously indicate where students can go to learn more information, like on our website. But unfortunately, just because of the time constraints to it, we won't be able to go as into detail about elections and things like that as we'd like.
I just meant, like, saying that they exist and you can get involved with, like, the Senate and the board.
So we just haven't gone so far into detail with those things. Unfortunately, it's been really, like, a quick turnaround.
Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering if it was just going to be like clubs, like, get involved with Foot Patrol versus, like, everything, like, where you can, Okay, thanks.
Moving on, Director Symington.
Okay. Well, first, I just want to say that I think this is a really interesting project, and I like how thorough the letter is. It seems like everything's, like, pretty well figured out. Like, you have everything down, all intents and purposes of, like, what you want to do here. I actually took a bit of time to go look at some of the other Memory Tree productions on their website, and it looks like they're actually pretty impressive. And I also found out that they're kind of local. They're located in Kitchener, so I also think that's kind of cool. You may have touched on it earlier, but I might not have caught it. Is this video, like, would it be made to be applicable to years beyond 2021, 2022? Because just in terms, like, obviously 10K, it's not like so much money, but it's also not like like it's not like a little amount of money, you know what I mean? So like if we could make it so that it's applicable for years beyond just like our next year, I think that would be like kind of a good way to go about making the most out of this, as like in terms of looking at it as an investment.
So I agree. I think we would want to use this as often as possible. I think to have it, but I still think we're getting quite a bit of, to say it crudely, like bang for our buck in this sense. Like we're making quite a bit of an effort with this to have it on our website, to have it be the first thing that like students see to understand the Students' Union, I think is like very great. If future leaders in my position want to take this on in their year, we can kind of use this as like a pilot. I think that's kind of what it could be utilized. As I mentioned earlier, I'm going to try to keep the information as broad as possible so that it could be utilized for future years. So in case that they don't want to utilize their budget towards it, because we do have like that allocated budget for special projects of this nature, they could still utilize this video, and I'll indicate that I was the president for this year and that this is the team for this year, but most of the resources have been here for a long time and we've been here for a long time. Because in essence, we don't have like an extreme changeover within that transition period between my year and like the next year, or Devin's year and my year.
Yeah, okay. I just think having like the like idea to be flexible with applying it to years beyond this one's a good one. And so considering you're kind of taking it like with a broad approach, I think that's a good idea.
Do we have any other questions for President? If not, I did receive a message from Director May in terms of her opinion. Also, a quick question. She says that 100,000 plus does seem like a lot for video, especially when the proposal says only 2 minutes, and they're using a lot of film. So the question is, like if they're using a lot of film, like why is it still so expensive?
Sorry, could the price you said is not 100,000?
Oh, sorry, I mean, sorry,
So we're clear.
my 10,000 plus, my bad.
Okay.
There was a missing comment there, but
No, so we also, Megan and I came into this not too certain what the average price point was for this. And we actually went to various different companies, some affiliated with our university, some who actually didn't have B-roll of our university. So B-roll, for context, is footage of our university, or just like background footage. And they still quoted us the exact same. So as I mentioned, this is actually an industry standard with or without that affiliation to Laurier. It just speeds up the process that they have that footage, because they also have footage of prior to COVID, so students being around campus, whereas now we wouldn't really be able to formulate that type of footage. They're also giving us a bit of a sale or a discounted price because of their relationship with our university. So we should take that into consideration as well.
and does that, I guess, sale or discount price, does that bring it basically equivalent to the other quotes that you received from these vendors that you discussed with?
So the other two, so the one vendor gave me a broad quote saying that we could work within that or above that, didn't give me an exact number. So we are not really too eager to work with that, especially given that they haven't worked with our university in the past. So they didn't have any B-roll or anything of that nature. But we kind of wanted to, I guess, understand if we were being overcharged or if this was like a reasonable standard. We're waiting for one other quote, and that's why this is like a tentative answer, and that's why we just want to have this flexibility to say yes or no to a company based off the fact that we will also be receiving another quote tomorrow as well.
I do have another question, but I'll pass it first to Director Del Giudice.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I want to say this seems like a great idea. I appreciate the ambition of the president and her team. However, I do want to point out that this video is only 2 minutes long, and I'm curious, how much valuable information can you get across to students in only 2 minutes? That's my only concern. Is it really worth it to spend this amount of money on information which is not going to go too much in depth?
So I personally, what I ran on my platform was that there was a lack of basic understanding of what the students union was from an outsider's perspective. And myself not having been involved in the students union up until my third and fourth year, I can tell you, I do remember my O week presentations. I remember those conversations that we had, but there was nothing of that same nature to I guess, explain to me. I didn't recognize, a lot of students that I spoke to didn't recognize that my position was an actual, like was a salaried position, or I worked here or whatever. They also didn't recognize that we run the health and dental plan, and they didn't recognize that there are so many small things that are actually quite large and quite impactful for students. So within 2 minutes, I think we could really open the eyes of students to things that they really don't know, but are fairly easy to grasp.
Okay, thank you.
Director Symington.
Just to that point, I think the idea of kind of keeping it concise and broad is probably a better idea given what we're trying to use this for. Like, I feel like if we were to make it, like too complex or like too long, it would kind of fail to like grasp or keep the attention of like first year students who don't know who we are to begin with. So to kind of bombard them with all this information, like to go too in depth would kind of render, in my opinion, would kind of render it like moot almost. So keeping it kind of like really flashy, but also including like, you know, what information we include to be essential, but keeping it kind of concise so that we can grasp their attention, you know, keep their attention visually so that they're listening, and then kind of be over and out with it. I think that's a good approach. And obviously if that does grasp their attention, then, you know, the video kind of leads to them going to their own devices to find where exactly in the students union they would want, like what avenue within the students union they would want to pursue for themselves.
Further, just to add, I know that I mentioned in my email that there's a by-election coming up. I think that this is a really good way to get those first years involved, because then they'll be really interested in learning more. And to see that will be on our website, that there is a by-election, we'll gather a lot more students to pay more attention to those things. Our last election had 12% student participation, which is only 2% above what we really need. So I think that this could really help with that. Megan is also here, and she works in our marketing department as the director of marketing. So if you have any more questions about that, I'm sure she's also fairly equipped to answer them.
On that note, I actually do have a question for Megan, if that's okay to ask through the president. I just want to know, in her experience, has the Students Union done any such project like this in the past?
Not since I've been director. And I think that is something to PJ's platform would be really useful, and especially this year with students coming back from the COVID world, I think would be really impactful. And I think that's something we really ought to be focusing on, is that we do have a generation of second year students who haven't set foot on campus, and a first year cohort of students who don't necessarily maybe have the word of mouth from upper year students. So I think anything that we do decide to do this year ought to be a lot more impactful than it has been in past years, because we don't have that word of mouth peer-to-peer messaging necessarily to fall back on.
Thank you, Megan. Another a question I have sent by proxy from Director May is that she's asking that if it's possible to have some sort of like student options for like getting, you know, students on campus who have experience in videography to do this and give them kind of like a chance to get involved and provide some sort of, you know, great benefits to students. You know, I think this was something similar along the lines of that poster idea that was spinning about before, like having student artists come in and provide that. I just kind of want to ask, is that something that is even possible to entertain?
So given the time frame that we have to organize this, no, I don't think that that would be really plausible. And given the nature of how professionally done we want to have this video made. Not to say that our students are not talented. I think that going with a video firm would probably be the best way, and also keeps everything pretty much above board versus having potential freelancing work done. However, we can always keep that in mind for future years. It's not that Megan and her team don't have the ability to create videos themselves. They have put together some great work, but it's the equipment that's that's obtained, the programs and softwares that are also obtained, and the fact that the university utilizes these videographers. I think it's a different type of project. Not to say that we can't use students to do certain projects of this nature in the future.
And kind of a quick follow-ups, just to confirm. So with Megan's, like how much is it a definitely like a huge gap between the capabilities of students union compared to this company here?
In all honesty, it also has more to do with the timing. The marketing department, as you're well aware, is only 3 of us for multi-campus projects. And with orientation week, we do have a couple of major projects coming up, such as the O-Week deadline, undergraduate health and dental plan opt-out. So this is also a way as well for us to ensure that this video project could be completed ahead of opening ceremonies for orientation week. But to PJ's point, there's definitely a big difference in the sense of what Memory Tree can provide. And also to her point, we do try to provide student opportunities within the marketing department. We also did discuss the opportunities of freelancing. We do have a videographer within the marketing department. So those are definitely top of mind, but for this specific project, we would like to steer closer to a more professionally done video.
Okay, thank you. And now I have one more question. In terms of the video, is it purely going to be just the Waterloo campus, or is it going to incorporate the Brantford campus too as well? So it could be it could be used interchangeably between campuses.
So our biggest hope is to keep it on both campuses as much as possible. But we're also cognizant of the timeline here. They did indicate that they could potentially do 2 days of filming. So we are hopefully going to be on Brantford, but regardless of if we will be able to actually physically get onto Brantford or not, that will be indicated within the video, of course.
Thank you. So that is my questions. I'm opening the floor again. Yes, Director Symington.
I'm just curious. This is just like something that popped into my head, but have you thought about if like this video would be applicable to like sending out for when we send like Laurier to do like university fairs for like recruiting? Do you think it would like, I don't like, I'm just completely like off the top of my head, like as an idea, like thinking about if it could be used for that, just because like we're trying to like make the most out of our money here. Do you think it would be applicable to like show at a university fair for like incoming students or students can like considering coming to Laurier?
If anything, like I think that if we do, yes, I do think that's possible. I think that's something that the university would want us to do. Like they would ask for us to do something of that nature. Like I hope so, that this video is of that standard. But yet again, like that would just be us collaborating with them. And I don't think that's too challenging. It's just not something that I think we've really had our mind on, but we can definitely look into that further.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
Before I think, oh, yes, Executive Director Champagne.
I was just going to suggest that by the end of September, that's usually when the university fair is. And so there's an opportunity for our student leaders to go down and participate in that recruitment effort, and they could point prospective students to our website, which would host that video. So not the direct link like you're suggesting maybe, Shane, but definitely a more passive kind of elbow nudge to the ribs going, hey, you should check this out.
Thank you, Executive Director Champagne. I can definitely sense that there's still, questions, especially regarding the deep workings of the financial quote. But before I get to that, I want to just ask the president on the record. So if this vote does not pass, the board for approval, then what are the kind of contingency plans and next step for this project?
So the project, and I mean this as respectfully as possible, is something that I'm extremely passionate about, and is something that I put on my platform that I was hoping to do, which was to increase our marketing. So for example, there is a rush charge to this. And so if, let's say, we do take our time to produce this video, it will be within my budget and my limitations to work with Megan to do so. But because of the rushed nature of this is requiring us to meet here and discuss it. But that's kind of how much I really want to leave it there, because I'm really hoping that we can move forward in a positive fashion.
No, thank you. I think that just really speaks to kind of like the reasons why we're having this discussion now, right? And the importance of trying to get for O week and that first week of September. But with that being said, is there any other questions regarding just kind of like the high level questions about this project? Anyone from the gallery would like to ask any questions about this? As I see none, then I believe that there was desire to have a further discussion within the financials of the quote. So yes, Director Vale.
Yeah, just maybe a suggestion, just I guess in the interest of transparency, and whatnot, is maybe perhaps like if assuming we do go in camera, then maybe people can be put in like the waiting room, and we could do her in camera, then people can be brought back in for like the vote and sort of what comes. I don't know, is that
I could set up a breakout room that
Or we
is
could do that.
possible. It will be my first time though, so it might take a little bit of time, but I think that for the sake of transparency, that is more than welcome to do so in that regard. But the first question first is that, does the board want to go in camera to discuss further detail the financials, or do we think we're prepared to make a vote right now? Okay, I'm assuming the thumbs up are for more questions. Okay, so can I get a motion on the table to bring the board in camera with the president and our full-time resources? That would be Director of Policy, Advocacy, and Research Muller and Executive Director Champagne. Motion by Director Vale, seconded by Director Del Giudice. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Oh, just a point of order, I believe. Do we want the director of marketing maybe in there as well?
Oh, yes, and to have her there as well. I assumed I lump that in with full-time resources. So all those in favor, Director Bothwell,
I approve.
Director Shando,
I approve.
Director Del Giudice,
I approve.
Director McCarthy,
I approve.
Director Symington,
I approve.
Director Vale,
I approve.
Vice Chair Sini.
I approve.
Okay, thank you. So give me moments to set this up here.